have 9, 41, 340, and 450. In Quebec, we have 9 million people. In Canada, you have 41 million. After that, 340, it's the U.S. market. What we see right now is in certain sectors, we may lose access to this huge market. We have Europe with 450 million people, and we have the same values, same priorities. They want to protect democracy, protect environment, develop the green economy. There's huge possibility. On top of that, you have all defense. They want to invest 800 billion euros in defense, and we can make aircraft. So we are in a good position to increase our exportations to Europe.
Boy, that was a long way around just to say, hey, we're thinking of doing some business with Europe. But there you go, Francois Legault showing off his math skills. James Mennie is on the line over at the Montreal Gazette. So, Jim, the Premier comes back from his visit to Germany, to Europe. I'm not sure what's new in here. We've been talking about the fact that Quebec wanted to get out there and, talk to other people, deal with other people. Is there anything new in here?
Well, yeah, I think so, Aaron. I mean, let's face it. You say he went to Germany. It's almost like he was on the road to Jerusalem and the scales fell from his eyes. I have never heard Francois Legault spend that much time talking about the economy, about Quebec's economy, about how necessary it is to diversify, sounding like an adult in the room, not blaming anybody else for the problem, simply finding solutions, being very, very pragmatic. And like I say, perhaps showing us a side that I think a lot of us in Quebec would have liked to have seen far more often and much sooner. It's a shame that Donald Trump had to blow up the economy to do this. But here's the thing. All these dynamics are changing. When I'm listening to the Premier of Quebec, he doesn't exactly sound like a co-conspirator with Danielle Smith, who wants to sit down and have a meeting with him and try and blow up the country by making sure there are 13 economies and all of them are competing against each other. In fact, the take I get is the exact opposite. Francois Legault, no matter what you want to say, God knows we said enough on this show about Francois Legault. For the time being, seems to be a team player on Team Canada. And I think at this point in time, where a lot of our listeners woke up this morning, checked their stock holdings, and sobbed out loud, you need people who sound like adults in the room, Aaron. But that said, the fact that we, to a certain extent, dodged a bullet, we have to ask ourselves, does that take some of the steam out of Mark Carney's campaign? I'm getting a feeling that now more than ever, these debates will not just be a matter of determining Mark Carney's French language skills or his ability to explain away the, how can I put it, the last 10 years, the lost decade, as Pierre Poilievre of the Conservatives likes to say. I think you are going to see, and I don't think it's hyperbole to say it, I think you're going to see competing visions of where this country, what this country has to be when it grows up. And God knows the learning curve is very short and it's been very sharp, but we are in the process of changing some very, very fundamental rules that, my God, a month ago we thought we'd never have to touch. So whether it's opening up trade between provinces, whether it's considering taking the harder road of selling to Europe, of selling to Asia, which right now, given the effects of the announced tariffs yesterday, would be looking around perhaps to deal with someone other than the United States. There is, of course, the joker in the pack, which is Donald Trump himself. The Senate vote that we discussed yesterday was successful for the Democrats. A lot of people are saying, well, if it goes to the House, it's not going to get through. Maybe not, but I've got to tell you, if you told me a month ago that 4 Republican senators would vote against Donald Trump on the mainstay of what is now his platform, I'd have told you were crazy. In the meantime, here's some interesting numbers. If Francois Legault's throwing numbers around, up to 50% of Canadians have money invested in the stock market. 2 out of 3 Americans have money in the stock market. How long do you think they're going to be able to take watching their lives evaporate for a guy who, quite frankly, I'm very sorry. I actually had to put myself through that press conference again just to double check what he said. He has no idea how tariffs work. He doesn't know what he's doing. And meanwhile, I mean, there was one number I saw yesterday. I don't know if you noticed it. Apparently, within the 20 minutes after his speech, worldwide markets lost about $5 trillion in value. That's the effect that's the effect of Donald Trump's golden age. And I'm not really sure. Like I say, that's the other joke in the back. I'm not really sure that this agenda will be able to proceed at the same pace and to the same extent as Donald Trump would like to see. I think, whether you're a Republican or a Trumpist, no matter what color your baseball cap is, if you are bleeding red in your bank account and your stock holdings, you may want to rethink your blind loyalty to a particular individual.
By the way, I will point out to this mention of stocks. So the Dow fell just today, 1,679 points. That's almost 4%. Yeah. The other markets, the S&P, which is a much broader accounting of stocks because there are 500 in there, plus the NASDAQ, all were down. One was down 5%. The other was down almost 6% today. It was the worst day in stock market indexes since 2020. So that's the Donald Trump effect right there.
And I got to tell you, I remember, I'm not just saying because I'm talking to you, Aaron, but I remember one of the most comforting pieces of advice I ever heard about the stock market came from you. I don't know what we were talking about. Maybe we were talking about the pandemic, but you said, in the end, it always comes back. And I thought, you can take some solace from that. But the problem is, not everyone can wait for the same amount of time. Yeah. Not everyone is in a situation where, and especially, my God, it makes me genuine. The people I feel the sorriest for are people who are in their 20s and their 30s. The deck was stacked enough against them before any of this crap happens. And now we turn around and we see this going on, and it's like absolutely scandalous. It is absolute. What an absolute betrayal of at least two generations of Canadians were saying, not just because of the policies that were enacted in this country, but just what in the hell's going on in the world. And it is just so frustrating. But to a certain extent, a lot of my frustration, Donald Trump is the lightning rod for that, because you're looking at a guy who's clearly an idiot, doesn't know what he's doing. The people around him, I'm sure, are lining their pockets on a shorted market. But and who knows what's going to come back? Like I say, I don't think this is going to last. It cannot last. It cannot endure for perhaps the months or years that some people are suggesting. But in the meantime, I think of all the people whose futures suddenly got a whole hell of a lot darker because you've got a chandelier-swinging maniac in the White House.
Listen, you're right. When I said markets always come back, historically they always do. But to your point, Jim, you're right. It's not a matter of a day or a week or a month. You may be looking at something that lasts for a year or two or longer. Nobody really knows, but unless policies begin to change. And that's, by the way, one of the things I'll just bring up before we get out of here. I know if you happen to hear the Prime Minister of Australia speaking about this, they got whacked with a 10% tariff for a country that doesn't tariff, apparently, the U.S., and he was saying, look, it's unfair. We're an ally, et cetera. Their position is we're not going to counter tariff. We're going to sit here and try to work this out diplomatically, if you will, and try to eventually, get rid of this tariff or bring it down to whatever level. Where our approach now in Canada, and we've talked about this before, but Mark Carney made it officially, put a stamp on it today. We're countering the 25% car tariffs with our own 25% auto tariffs. And I wonder how many Canadians are maybe beginning to think maybe that's not the best approach.
I think it's, and I understand what you're saying, but I also think because of, rightly or wrongly, how utterly intertwined at the DNA level are the economies of Canada and the United States and Mexico have become, it's very, very difficult to turn around and say, and let one person take the lead. And as I say, Donald Trump's strategy is to press every button on the control panel and see what happens. I also would respectfully submit that Australia may have a little more in the options of trade partners. They may not want to be pushed into the arms of China and those Southeast Asian markets, but they may have no choice. But I think we are in a vastly different, we are literally living right alongside this madhouse. And we have been willing business partners with this asylum for decades. So it's going to be difficult for us to turn around and say, you know what, no, we'll just try and reason with you. As I say, as the person you're trying to negotiate with, continues swinging from the chandelier.
Just one point before we get out of here. You talked about Francois Legault, giving him credit for going ahead and going out there and looking to do deals, because we need to do this now. We can't just be relying, as we said, on the U.S. Have you heard anything about interprovincial trade barriers, which we talked about even weeks ago, and some kind of definitive announcement to the fact that they're going to be, reduced, eliminated, anything at all?
No, nothing concrete. The only thing I've heard, obviously, is the knee-jerk response from, say, the PQ and the Bloc saying that, no. We're not going to have one single Canadian economy. There's going to be 13 economies, the blah, 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 because you need that insurance down the road, because if Quebec ever separates, you want to have your own economy. That's what it's always been. And the polls, I think, are going to show. I haven't seen a provincial poll yet. It'd be interesting to see how the PQ's been faring through this. But certainly the polls are kind of giving the public's assessment of the Bloc's position. But no, I have not seen anything. And quite frankly, at the moment, I think the real sort of triage will be to deal with the fallout from the U.S. moves, and then sort of and once again, I think Carney is meeting with the premiers tomorrow. I saw that. So you know what? We may have something to talk about on that tomorrow as well. But to your point, it's going to have to happen, Aaron. We cannot continue the way we're going. Again, for the 15th time. In the past 4 weeks, we have to say, you know what? Life as we know it will never be the same. So, I'm used to saying that now. But all that said, we'll just have to wait and see what happens tomorrow. Yeah. But once again, I am just today. My thoughts are really with the people who are trying at the point in their lives where they should be trying to start off in life to make a foundation, and they just keep getting hit by wrecking balls every other week.
Fair enough. That's a good point, too. Let's not forget them. Jim, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Adama.